Welcome to HOA Legends, where every neighborhood rules has story waiting to be told. Last winter, I learned that some people believing on a house also meaning on others humans. I had no idea a simple stone storm would turn into police sirens, a furious HOA president, and a 911 dispatcher trying not to laugh on a recorder line. It started with a knock on a truck window while I was clearing a grocery store lot at 6 in the morning. Snow was still falling thick and heavy, turning the world into a white blur. I had my headphones on heater, blasting focused on finishing before traffic started. Then came the tapping, sharp and impatient.
I rolled the window down a few inches and saw a woman in an oversized fur-lined coat, snowflakes clinging to her hair, glaring at me like I had personally offended her. Behind her stood two men holding phones, already recording. She didn't say hello. She said, "You're our snow guy." I blinked. "Sorry." She sighed dramatically. "Our HOA hired you. You're supposed to be at Pinecrest Estates right now. We've been waiting for 2 hours." I looked at the logo on my truck door, then back at her. "Ma'am, I don't work for any HOA. I'm contracted here." That's when her expression changed from annoyed to offended. "Don't play games. We pay your company every winter." "You've got the wrong guy," I said. "No," she snapped, stepping closer, "you're refusing to do your job." One of the men muttered, "Call Linda." The other was still filming, zoomed in on my face. I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, the one that comes before nonsense escalates. "Look, I have another site after this. I can't help you." She crossed her arms. "You don't get to decide that." Then she pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police." I actually laughed. "For what?" She didn't answer. She just turned away and started talking. I heard the words, refusing, contracted, and our property. The man filming whispered, "This is going viral." Snow kept falling around us, quiet and steady, like the world didn't care about this absurd argument. I went back to my controls, thinking she'd calm down. Instead, she shouted, "Stay right there. Officers are on the way." I turned the engine off. If she wanted a show, she was about to get one. Because I knew something she didn't. I had never spoken to her HOA, and this misunderstanding was about to become their very public mistake. I stepped out of the truck, snow crunching under my boots, and waited. If they wanted to involve law enforcement over imaginary employment, I was curious how that conversation would go. The woman kept pacing, muttering, convinced she was right. I just watched the snow fall, already sensing this morning was about to get very interesting for everyone. Two police cruisers arrived faster than I expected, tires crunching over fresh snow as blue lights painted the street in slow flashes. The woman straightened instantly, like an actor hitting her mark, and waved them down with dramatic urgency. One officer stepped out, tall, calm, already wearing the expression of someone prepared for nonsense. The other remained near the car, watching quietly. She hurried forward before they even spoke. "That's him. He's refusing to plow our neighborhood. We pay his company every year." The officer glanced at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, slow down. What exactly is happening?" She pointed accusingly. "He's contracted to us. He just won't do his job." I walked closer, hands visible, boots leaving deep prints. "Morning, officer. I've never seen her before today." The officer nodded. "Do you work for their HOA?" "No, sir." "Have you ever signed anything with them?" "Never." He turned to her. "Do you have paperwork showing he's hired by you?" She hesitated, then said, "Well, not on me, but we pay the snow company." "What company, he asked. She named a business I'd never heard of. I shook my head. That's not me. The second officer approached now, listening carefully. The woman's confidence began cracking, but pride kept her loud. He's lying. Look at the truck. He's clearly a snow contractor. The first officer looked at my door logo and read it aloud. Completely different name. He raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, this isn't the company you mentioned. She froze for half a second, then recovered. Well, maybe they subcontracted him. I couldn't help smiling. The officer noticed. Sir, were you ever told to go to Pinecrest Estates today? No, I have my own route. I showed him my worksheet on my phone. Addresses, timestamps, everything. He studied it and nodded. Then he asked her, did you call 911 for this? She lifted her chin. Yes. He's refusing service. The officer exhaled slowly through his nose. Refusing service isn't a crime. She looked genuinely confused. But he works for us. No, he said gently, he doesn't. Snowflakes gathered on her coat as the reality settled in. The man filming lowered his phone slightly. The second officer spoke for the first time. Ma'am, 911 is for emergencies. This is a misunderstanding. Her face turned red. So you're not going to make him go? The officer almost laughed. We don't make people work for free. I bit my lip to stay quiet. The woman looked from me to them, realizing the situation was slipping away from her control. But instead of apologizing, she doubled down. Then I want a report filed. He wasted our time. The officers exchanged a glance that said everything. This was far from over for anyone here. She stood there staring at the officers like they had betrayed her personally. We all felt the shift in the air, that awkward moment when someone realizes they were completely wrong but refuses to admit it. She cleared her throat and adjusted her coat, trying to regain authority. This is unacceptable, she said, voice tight with frustration. The first officer kept his tone calm. Ma'am, he repeated, this is not a police matter. Snow drifted quietly between us, settling on hats, shoulders, and pride. The man who had been filming lowered his phone completely now. He looked embarrassed, like he had expected a very different ending. I could see neighbors peeking through windows, curtains twitching as the scene unfolded. This was becoming a public spectacle. The second officer asked her, do you have the number for the actual company you hired? She fumbled with her phone, hands shaking slightly from cold and anger. After a moment, she found it and dialed. We stood there in silence, listening to it ring. When someone answered, her voice instantly softened. Hi, this is Linda from Pinecrest Estates. We've been waiting for hours. They say our driver isn't coming. Her eyes flicked to me. The officer gestured for speaker. She hesitated then obeyed. A sleepy voice came through. Ma'am, we don't service Pinecrest. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. What do you mean? She finally asked. We stopped working with your HOA last year, the voice replied. They never renewed the contract. They still owe us money. The officers exchanged looks. Her face lost all color. So no one is coming? No, ma'am. The wind picked up, swirling snow around our boots. I watched understanding dawn slowly on her face. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about her HOA's mess. The first officer spoke carefully. Ma'am, I think you need to call your board. She looked small suddenly, like the authority had drained out. I felt a strange mix of pity and amusement. But she wasn't done. She straightened. We still need the snow cleared, she insisted. She turned to me. How much? I blinked. For what? To plow our roads. I shook my head. I don't work on the spot. The officer smirked. "Ma'am," he said, "he can say no." Her eyes narrowed. "So this is personal?" I laughed softly. "It's business." The neighbors outside were watching openly now, phones out, whispering. Embarrassment spread across her face like a rash. The second officer checked his watch. "Anything else, ma'am?" She hesitated long. "No." He nodded toward me. "You're free to go." I walked back to my truck, feeling the weight of their stares. But I paused. I turned. "One last thing," I said. "If you want service, call the right company." Then I climbed inside, started the engine, and watched them in the mirror for a second. They looked lost, cold, and very quiet. Snow kept falling silently. I pulled out of the lot expecting that to be the end of it. Just another strange encounter to laugh about later. But 10 minutes down the road, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me not to. I answered through the truck speakers. "Is this the snow contractor from this morning?" a tight male voice asked. "Depends who's asking." "This is Mark, president of Pinecrest Estates HOA." I laughed under my breath. Of course it was. "What can I do for you, Mark?" "You caused a scene in our neighborhood," he said sharply. "My board is very unhappy." "I was clearing a grocery store when your board called the police on me," I replied. "That's your definition of me causing a scene." He ignored that. "Linda says you refused service." "I don't work for you." "You do now," he snapped. "We need the roads cleared. Immediately." I checked the clock. My schedule was already tight. "That's not how this works." He sighed loudly like I was the difficult one. "Name your price." I paused. Not because I wanted the job, but because his tone had changed from commanding to bargaining in under a minute. "I'm booked all day." "We'll pay double." I smiled. Still no. Silence. Then, "You're being unprofessional." That word hung in the air. I almost admired the confidence. "Mark," I said calmly, "you called 911 because you thought I was your employee. You're not in a position to lecture anyone on professionalism." He didn't like that. His voice hardened. "If you don't help us, we'll leave a review for your company everywhere. People should know how unreliable you are." There it was. The threat. I pulled into my next site and parked before answering. "Go ahead," I said. "Just make sure you mention you mistook me for someone else and called the police." He went quiet. I added, "Also mention that your HOA didn't renew its contract and owes money." He inhaled sharply. "Who told you that?" "Your own contractor." On speaker. In front of two officers. The line stayed silent for a long time. Then he tried a different tactic. "Look, emotions are high. Let's reset. We really do need help." I could hear wind on his end. He was outside, probably staring at the unplowed streets. "I don't do emergency favors," I said. "Especially after being accused of something I never agreed to." "You're punishing the residents," he said. "No," I replied, "your HOA is." That one landed. I could tell. Before he hung up, he said something that told me this wasn't over. "We'll remember this." I looked at my phone after the call ended and laughed. Somehow, saying no had turned me into their villain. And I had a feeling Pinecrest Estates was about to learn that bullying strangers comes with consequences they hadn't even imagined yet. By noon, the snow had slowed, but my phone had not. Unknown numbers kept calling back to back. I finally answered one out of curiosity. A woman's voice rushed through the speaker before I could say hello. "Are you the guy the HOA said refused to plow our roads?" I leaned back in my seat. "Depends who told you that." She sighed. "They sent an email blast to the entire neighborhood blaming you." Said you abandoned the contract and left us stranded. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable. I've never had a contract with your HOA. That's what I thought, she said quickly. Because we've never seen your truck before. But they made it sound like you've been our plow driver for years. I shook my head. They confused me with another company. Then called 911 when I said I didn't work for them. There was a long pause. Then she burst out laughing. They called the police? Over snow? Yep. Oh, this is going on the neighborhood Facebook group, she said. People are furious already. No one can get out, and now this. Before hanging up, she asked for my company name. I gave it without hesitation. Something told me the truth was about to spread faster than the HOA could contain it. An hour later, another call came. This time a man. Hey, did our HOA really try to force you to work for free? Pretty much. He chuckled. Good for you. They do this to everyone. Contractors, landscapers, delivery drivers. You're just the first one who didn't cave. That stuck with me. By mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed with notifications from my business page. New followers. Messages. Even a few job inquiries. I opened one message that read, "Saw what happened at Pinecrest. We'd rather hire you than deal with them." I couldn't believe it. Their attempt to shame me had flipped completely. Then came the email screenshot someone forwarded me. The HOA's message to residents was full of confident lies. Our contracted snow provider refused service this morning, leaving Pinecrest Estates in dangerous conditions. No names. No proof. Just blame. I sent the screenshot to a friend of mine who worked in local media. You might like this, I wrote. He replied almost instantly. Did they really call 911? Yep. Send me details. As the day went on, I realized something important. This wasn't about snow anymore. This was about an HOA used to pushing people around finally running into someone who didn't play along. And the residents were starting to notice. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. A calm voice said, "This is Officer Ramirez from this morning. You might want to know something." I sat up straighter. "What's that?" He said, "You're not the only one who's getting calls about Pinecrest today. Turns out," Officer Ramirez said, "we've received 6 non-emergency complaints from Pinecrest residents today. All asking why police were sent for a snow plow." I rubbed my forehead and laughed quietly. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," he replied. "They're saying the HOA blamed you in an email. People are confused." I pictured the neighborhood group chat lighting up like a Christmas tree. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Well," he said, "misuse of 911 is something we take seriously. Especially when it creates unnecessary dispatch traffic during a storm." That made me pause. I hadn't even considered that angle. To me, it was just ridiculous. To them, it was a waste of emergency resources on a dangerous day. Ramirez continued, "We're documenting everything, including the call recording." I smiled. "I'd love to hear that." "You might," he said, almost amused. Dispatch thought it was a prank at first. After we hung up, I sat there for a moment, staring at the falling snow through the windshield. This had grown way beyond a misunderstanding. The HOA's attempt to control the narrative was collapsing fast, and now the police were paying attention for a different reason. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from a number I didn't recognize. A screenshot of the neighborhood Facebook group. Someone had posted, "Does anyone know why our HOA called 911 on a random snow contractor who doesn't even work for us?" The comments were brutal. They owe last year's plow company money. They never renewed the contract. They're blaming some poor guy to cover it up. And my favorite, Imagine calling the cops because someone won't work for free. I couldn't help laughing. The truth was spreading on its own. A few minutes later, my friend from local media called. I spoke to a couple of residents. They confirmed everything. This is gold. Are you serious? HOA calls 911 over snowplow? That's a headline. I leaned back, stunned at how fast this was moving. I didn't ask for any of this. Doesn't matter, he said. They handed it to you. Before we hung up, he asked for one thing. Do you have dashcam footage from this morning? I smiled slowly. Actually, I do. Silence. Then he said, send it. As I transferred the file, I realized something ironic. The HOA thought they could pressure me into quiet compliance. Instead, they had created a story that was about to go public in a way they could never control. And Pinecrest Estates still hadn't been plowed. By early evening, the storm had finally passed, leaving the town buried under a thick, glittering layer of snow. I was finishing my last site when my phone lit up with messages faster than I could read them. Missed calls. Notifications. Tags. My business page had turned into a live comment section about Pinecrest Estates. Then my friend texted a link. The headline read, HOA calls 911 on wrong snow contractor during storm. I actually said wow out loud inside the truck. The article was short but sharp. It mentioned the 911 call, the misunderstanding, the unpaid contract, and included a still image from my dashcam footage. My truck. The woman. The police lights in the snow. No names, but it didn't need them. Anyone in Pinecrest knew exactly who this was about. Within minutes, shares climbed into the hundreds. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. This is Mark, the HOA president said, voice strained. Gone was the arrogance from earlier. He sounded tired. Panicked, even. I figured you'd call, I said calmly. You sent that footage to the news? They asked. I said yes. He exhaled loudly. This is causing serious problems for us. I looked around at the peaceful, snow-covered parking lot. You called 911 on me. That's being blown out of proportion, he snapped. We just needed the roads cleared. By accusing a stranger of refusing a job he never had. He didn't answer that. Instead, he said, residents are demanding a meeting. They're saying we lied. I stayed quiet. We need you to make a statement saying this was a misunderstanding. I laughed. It was. On your end. This could damage property values, he said desperately. That's not my department, I replied. He tried one last angle. We'll pay you triple to come plow tonight. And we'll issue a public apology. I thought about it for half a second. Not because I wanted the money, but because I wanted him to hear the answer clearly. No. Silence. You can't be serious, he whispered. I am. You don't get to bully someone, call the police, blame them publicly, and then hire them when it's convenient. His voice dropped. What do you want? I watched snow slide slowly off my windshield. Nothing. I want you to fix the mess you made. He didn't say goodbye when he hung up. As I started the truck, I realized this had stopped being about me hours ago. This was now between the HOA and the residents they had tried to mislead. And tomorrow morning, Pinecrest Estates was going to wake up to a neighborhood still buried in snow, and a reputation buried even deeper. The next morning, Pinecrest Estates looked like a postcard nobody wanted. Sunlight hit the untouched snow, making it sparkle beautifully while cars sat trapped like ornaments in a frozen display. My phone buzzed before I even got out of bed. Messages, tags, screenshots. The story had spread beyond the town overnight. Someone had uploaded the full dashcam clip to social media. There I was on video, window cracked, snow falling, the woman declaring, "You're our snow guy," followed by the police lights washing everything blue. You could even hear her say she was calling 911. The comments were ruthless. HOA logic: if you see a shovel, it belongs to you. They tried to outsource responsibility to a stranger. Imagine wasting emergency services because you didn't renew a contract. I made coffee and scrolled in disbelief. Then a new post caught my eye. A photo of a printed notice taped to Pinecrest's community mailbox. Emergency HOA meeting attendance required. Under it, someone had written in marker, "Bring a shovel." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my mug. By mid-morning, my friend from the news station called again. "You're trending locally." Another outlet picked it up. "You're kidding." "Nope. They want to interview you." I hesitated. I wasn't looking for attention. But I also wasn't going to hide. "Fine," I said. "As long as it's factual." While we talked, another call came in. "Officer Ramirez. Thought you'd like an update," he said. "Internal review flagged that 911 call. Your HOA friend is getting a warning for misuse of emergency services." I let out a slow whistle. "That escalated." "They escalated it," he corrected gently. Before hanging up, he added, "For what it's worth, you handled yourself better than most would." That meant more than he probably realized. Around noon, I got a message from a Pinecrest resident. A photo of the HOA board standing in front of a crowd of angry homeowners. Folding chairs. People bundled in coats. Arms crossed. No smiles. Caption: "They're getting roasted." Apparently, the board had tried to explain it as a communication error. That didn't go well once multiple residents played the dashcam video out loud on their phones. The truth had a way of echoing in cold air. Later that afternoon, I received 3 job requests from neighborhoods nearby. One message said, "We want someone who knows how to say no to HOAs." I smiled at that. What Pinecrest didn't realize when they tried to push me around was that they weren't just dealing with a contractor. They were dealing with someone who had nothing to lose by telling the truth. And now, they were the ones stuck digging themselves out. A week later, most of the snow had melted, but Pinecrest Estates was still dealing with the fallout. I hadn't heard from Mark or Linda again, and that silence told me everything. The story had run its course in the news cycle, but inside that neighborhood, it was still very much alive. I found out how when I received an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note and a small gift card to a local coffee shop. The note read, "I live in Pinecrest. I watched the whole thing unfold from my window that morning. I want you to know many of us are grateful you didn't cave. This HOA has bullied people for years. Contractors, residents, even delivery drivers. No one ever pushed back. Until you did. They've already had 2 board members resign. Thank you." I read it twice. It felt strange. I never set out to be anyone's hero. I just didn't want to be someone's employee without my permission. Later that day, I got one final call from an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously. "This is Mark," he said quietly. His voice sounded different. Not angry. Not demanding. Just tired. I wanted to apologize. I didn't say anything. I let him talk. "We handled everything wrong. The contract issue, the email, the police call. Residents are furious. I should have called you calmly instead of escalating it. I appreciated the honesty, even if it came late. I accept the apology," I said. He paused, then added, "I guess we're learning that you can't treat people like they owe you something." "That's a good lesson," I replied. Before hanging up, he said, "For what it's worth, we finally hired a new plow company. Properly." I smiled. "Glad to hear it." When the call ended, I sat there for a moment thinking about how absurd the whole thing had been. A snowstorm. A misunderstanding. A 911 call that never should have happened. And yet, it exposed something bigger than snow removal. Some people get so used to authority in small spaces that they forget the rest of the world doesn't operate by their rules. I finished my coffee, grabbed my keys, and headed out for the day's work. Just another winter morning, just another route. But now, whenever I pass Pinecrest Estates, I can't help glancing over at their freshly plowed streets and smiling a little. Because every time they see a snow truck now, I'm pretty sure they double check the contract first.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoy it, please subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in comments. Your support means the world to me.